Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to This is Mariya. Today we're going to talk about manifestation, but specifically the concept of the quantum leap. We're going to dive into what it is, when it is possible, what can be in the way of your ability to quantum leap, and how does that concept work from the perspective of energy. Now, before we dive in, I wanted to remind you that my book, 72 Keys to Manifestation, or An Ancient Path of a Modern-Day Alchemist, is available through Amazon and through Audible. If you are on a manifestation journey, but are looking for new ways to manifest, more effective ways, this book is for you. It contains 72 steps to manifesting your best life. It has very practical exercises. It talks a lot about manifestation from the energy perspective. Where can you get the energy? How to, work through energy in a way that's most effective for manifestation, etc. Yeah, if that seems like something you're interested in, do check out the book. All right, let us dive into the topic of a quantum leap. Usually, quantum leaps are described as big movements as far as your situation in life. So when you're jumping timelines, and that is usually, it is usually described in the context of timelines. This concept of jumping timelines is becoming ever more popular in the esoteric community lately. This concept of not staying on the timeline that you're on, but having this ability to choose between multiple timelines, some very close to where you are today and others quite far removed. So according to the quantum theory, there are multiple parallel realities, multiple versions of existence existing in parallel. Not only are there collective realities that exist, meaning that there are multiple versions of this reality from the collective perspective, things that are very objectively true for everybody involved. Now, in that same vein, though, there are multiple realities for you individually as a soul within those collective realities that you can play in. As a creator being, as something that is a projection of source consciousness, you have an ability to move between these timelines quite seamlessly, as well as create new timelines if the timeline that you need or the timeline that you would like to experience does not yet exist in the greater cosmos, call it. I find that usually the quantum leap as a concept is used in two different ways, or there are two primary reasons why it comes up. The first one is a means of escaping the current vertical of reality. When certain world events are perceived as too much, there is that need or want to escape the grander whole of humanity. And that's one. Two, when somebody's trying to manifest something that's bigger than life, sometimes the vibration of the current timeline or any of the adjacent timelines are not such that they would enable you to manifest that thing. As in, the thing that you want may be really outside of your comfort zone or your zone of reach. If that is the case, what you may need to do is jump to a point within the network that is fairly far away, or you may need to create a whole new vertical for yourself that is quote unquote far away from the point where you are right now. In all of those cases, it is said that you are going through an experience called a quantum leap, or that you're leaping, doing quantum jumping. Now, whatever is your reason for why you want to jump timelines, this episode is less about the why and more about the process and how you can align with that possibility for yourself. So quantum jumping, let's dissect that. Is that really jumping? It's not truly. So what ends up happening is you're shifting your focus when you're trying to quantum leap. By shifting your focus, you're shifting your vibration. Very often, the process of a quantum leap is a process of shedding. It's the shedding of old skin, if you will. It is also a massive shedding of your programming in the mental space. It is a massive shedding of some of the energy settings of your body. So long story short is, in the quantum leap, you shift how you vibrate, the frequency at which you vibrate. And if the shift is dramatic, then you move to another timeline that is a match to your current vibration. And that timeline is really, really far away from where you are. Now, we're shifting timelines all the time. Depending on your mood, you may be shifting timelines multiple times a day. Depending on the choices that you make, even the small choices, can send you on a whole new trajectory in life. That being said, not every movement through timelines is considered to be a quantum leap. A quantum leap is usually a move within a pretty large degree of separation between where you are and where you'd like to go. And that is always prefaced by a decent shift in energy. Quantum leaps are real. Quantum leaps are possible. Sometimes quantum leaping happens naturally, or I would say the bulk of quantum leaps that exist usually happen naturally or accidentally, as in it is not an intentional process. Sometimes it is via the process of awakening or another trigger event. So something happens to you and your life is never going to be the same. And if your life is never going to be the same, it's almost like your entire vibration changes. Your assemblage point changes. How you perceive the world changes. Obviously, your energy changes. Everything about you changes. Your patterns of thinking may change. And when that is the case, your old timeline is no longer a vibrational match to you. So the universe is going to align you with the one that is. And depending on how drastically your views have shifted, depending on how drastic the trigger event was, you may change timelines very quickly. One example that I could give you is a near-death experience. If somebody goes through a near-death experience, very often they don't come back quite the same. There is a realization that they had, and that realization is making certain vibrations available to them that have not been available before. And usually it's a shift in the mental energy, and from the mental, of course, the emotional changes and the energy changes as well. And so somebody who has been through an NDA would usually experience, it's almost like you cannot walk into the same river twice. They would usually experience a large shift in their own perception and therefore their reality. Now, when you're quantum jumping, your world doesn't automatically feel different right away. You still have to follow the breadcrumbs and watch and notice the signs. There are always signs. A lot of people would not notice the signs because when you have just shifted, the changes are very, very subtle. The larger changes between your current circumstance and the new timeline are going to be apparent with time. In other words, time still needs to pass by for you to even notice that things are shifting on a pretty dramatic level. So, for those quantum jumps that happen automatically or naturally or organically, again, it is because of a trigger event. It is because of a larger-than-life realization or some shift in your circumstance. It can be, like I said, a life and death situation. It could be you overcoming an illness, right? It could be somebody, like a relative, for instance, dying. And that experience of coming close to death, as in witnessing somebody you love die, may really shift your perspective, may really shift your vibration, and that would create a quantum leap. Now, a quantum leap is usually used in instances where you're upgrading to a better timeline. If you're downgrading, it's usually a regression into a less optimal reality, usually not called a quantum leap. However, the thing that happens in the background, the same process, is true for the universe when you are shifting to a better timeline as opposed to a worse timeline. And the process is called alignment, is what it is. It's your energy needs to be aligned to the energy of the timeline where you currently are. If they're not in sync, if they are in conflict, it's not a match. If it's not a match, it cannot long-term stick. So really, it's instead of thinking of this process of leaping anywhere, It's a process of shifting your vibration so the timelines almost leap under you, if that makes sense. It's the timelines that are doing the jumping, not you really. You're kind of staying in one place, if that makes sense. Now, those are technicalities. What are the reasons that you would want to induce a quantum jump? Sometimes when you have an intention to manifest something big, but nothing in your current reality, nothing in your current timeline serves as proof that you're on the right track, you may have to jump. In other words, if you're looking for a very dramatic change in your life, whether that is a very dramatic change in your income, whether that is a very dramatic change in your material possessions, whether that is a very dramatic change in how you experience relationships, whatever that is, when it is a big change, a quantum leap may be your best bet. Now, that being said, if you're just working on, if you're just using regular manifestation techniques, and you're manifesting something really big and very different from where you are today, the process of shifting timelines still happens. It's just a little bit more of a drastic process, it's a little bit more of a temperate process, meaning, I'm going to give you an analogy. So imagine that every timeline next to you was numbered. So if I'm on timeline 1, and my goal is on timeline 10, for instance, timeline 10 is my big dream. And that is where I would vibrate at the level that I can have my deepest dream. Regular manifestation is a little bit like walking from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5, to 7 to 10. And eventually, you're shifting timelines and eventually you're going to get to 10. It's a more regimented, it's a slower process. Quantum leap is something that's usually quite dramatic and it skips levels. Normally, you wouldn't skip levels when you are moving timelines. So when you're moving timelines on a day-to-day basis, you're usually stepping one step to the right, one step to the left, and it's a very, very minor movement. A quantum leap is when the movement is drastic. For instance, when I'm on timeline number 1 and I want to move to timeline number 121. Because it's so far removed from me, I would need a quantum jump because there is, quote unquote, a lot of space between 1 and 121. I cannot just walk in there. I'm going to have to leap, if that makes sense. Now, again, nobody's doing the leaping. It's just you're trying to align with a sector of the network of the matrix that is far away from you, and therefore it requires additional resources and a particular way to focus energy in order for you to move into that timeline that has what you want. So the point is, it is actually impossible to manifest something that you want if it's big, that does not already exist on the current timeline. For instance, if I'm on a timeline and I would like to manifest a 5-bedroom house, and on this timeline, on this trajectory that I'm in, a 5-bedroom house is just not going to happen. There is no amount of focusing my energy that I could do in order to place a 5-bedroom house in front of me on the timeline. Instead, what is actually easier to do is find a timeline, shuffle the timelines around, and find the timeline where that 5-bedroom house already exists, or rather, it would be a vibrational match to me on that timeline, and then just shift into that reality. And so I can just keep walking forward, but on that timeline, that 5-bedroom house is already a reality. It's already a possibility. It's within the realm of what's possible. So that's really how manifestation works. Quantum leaping, when it is done intentionally, is not so easy to do because there are quite a few impediments on the way, and energetically, it's not so easy. Let me explain the things that you need in order to quantum jump. And when I do, you will understand why it is not so trivial to quantum leap. First, in order to move long distance, which is what a quantum leap requires, you need a lot of free energy. Free energy is a concept of, it's like energy in excess of what you need for your day-to-day activities and, your kind of call them minor dreams and aspirations and creative processes that you may be going through on a daily basis, right? So it's something in excess. It's something almost like that is stashed and saved somewhere in the back burner, specifically for those things. So if you already are low energy in your day-to-day, you probably don't have enough resource, you don't have enough battery, you don't have enough firepower in order to quantum leap. Which is not to say that you're doomed, right? First fix your energy, and then you can quantum leap potentially. But also still, you can do the regular manifestation techniques, and you can get from sector 1 to sector 2 to sector 3 and go a little bit more in order as opposed to skipping a bunch of levels, which is what quantum leaping is all about. Now, first, you require a lot of energy. So it is an energy-intensive process. Not only that, once you actually, move from one sector to the other, that energy is used up. So you cannot really recoup the energy that you used for the quantum leap. That energy is going to be gone and it's going to be out of your system, so to say. So it's not necessarily easy to get a refund. So that's that. 2, even if you have enough energy stashed somewhere for you to make that quantum leap, the second thing that is paramount is the absence of resistance to that new timeline. Resistance comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and that is usually probably the second biggest culprit after energy. Say there's something that you really desire that's big and it's in sector 121, but you have resistance towards it. You are not going to be able to align with that because, again, resistance equals not a vibrational match to something. Resistance can come from a very simple place of just feeling like, say, you don't deserve it, right? It's not within your comfort level. If something is not within your comfort level, you're not going to be able to align with it. But resistance comes in other ways as well. For instance, let's say that your intention is to become wealthy, but you have resistance in your body towards wealth because of guilt or shame, for instance. Let's just say that you think that all of the wealthy people are somehow cheating or are somehow stealing or just they're not honorable for whatever reason. And you may be ashamed of, being too wealthy because maybe you're going to be judged or whatever that is. Any of those feelings may be in the way of you making the quantum leap. So they are going to, instead of bringing you closer to your goal, are going to take you further away from the goal. So in other words, you cannot really make the quantum leap until and unless you work through all of that resistance in your body. So resistance, right? Fix resistance. 2, allow yourself to have that which you want to have. If that is in sector 121, first you have to get there mentally, as in you have to allow yourself to expand your self-concept in order for your self-concept to be big enough that it would fit you being able to achieve that thing which you desire. Self-concept is one of the harder things to stretch because not only are we trained on this, once you incarnate into this body, there are all of these boundaries that are set in front of you. And you're trained to believe in your own limitations. You're not really trained to believe in your own limitlessness. Everything and anything in the observable universe reminds you that things are finite, that things are logical, and there is a sequence of events to things. And you see, quantum leap is not logical. If you're trying to quantum leap and you're stuck in the logical perception of what reality is, you're never going to be able to quantum leap. That's going to be dead in the water. It's going to be quite impossible for you. So if you're really stuck in linear thinking, if you're really stuck in believing how things are traditionally, quantum leap is going to be impossible for you because quantum leap is actually, for all intents and purposes, highly unlikely. It is a miracle. It's a miraculous occurrence. It takes a quantum, and in this case, you are the quantum, which is a particle of light. And this particle of light stops believing in its own limitations so much that almost like a rocket ship, instead of being pulled back by gravity, it escapes the gravitational pull of the current timeline and all of the adjacent timelines to jump, quote unquote, onto into a whole other zone where something that they desire is possible. And that is highly, highly unlikely. Let's just say that the things the way they are in the current matrix are not really conducive to quantum leaps, right? A lot of things are very regimented. It's like do A, then do B, then do C, and then, you're going to be happy. So a lot of the things are very sequential. A lot of things are very linear. There's not a lot of exponential anything on planet Earth that is observable. And if it is, right, it's usually not so easy to replicate or achieve outside of nature. And so very often, so for most people, in other words, it's going to be really, really hard to achieve the quantum leap. Hard, not impossible. So if we were to dissect specifically what needs to happen in the process of the quantum leap, first is the clarity on the goal. You have to get extremely clear around what the goal is, what the end plan is. And, right, if that end goal is so big that you feel like if things just went ahead the way that they are right now in your life and nothing got changed, there's no way you would ever achieve that goal, then that goal warrants a quantum leap. So it's usually for something that you have a lot of discomfort around believing or around feeling like it can be your own. Step number 2 is to allow yourself to receive that thing, allow yourself to have it, and allow yourself to claim it. This is potentially the hardest one of all, because you're going to have to believe in the impossibility. Meaning, you're going to have to believe in the miracle here a little bit, because your logical mind is going to pull you on every string imaginable, telling you it's not real. There's no way that can happen for you. It is not logical. Well, this is nuts. This is crazy. There's just no way. And you're going to have to be like, no, I am the creator being, and I decide. And from there are techniques. So first is the infusion technique. The infusion technique is literally infusing yourself with the energy of that which you desire. So in this case, let's just use a 5-bedroom house. For the lack of a better, analogy, it's not a bad proxy. So the way that technique works is you imagine there's a golden sphere of light that encapsulates your wish, your dream, your desire, literally like a little pictogram inside of a golden sphere of light. And then you do the infusion technique. You multiply that little golden sphere by 1,000,000 or like 1,000,000,000,000 times. And then you start sending a stream of those little golden spheres up through your crown and down your body and infusing yourself with that energy. And the trick here is to infuse every cell of your body with that energy. So you're going to have to make sure that all of these little spheres are being dispersed enough in your body that they get into every nook and cranny, every organ, every tissue, every cartilage, etc. So the infusion technique is 1. 2, and I like this technique, really part of it is allow yourself to have, right? Just expand your capacity to receive. Usually when the goal feels bigger, when the goal feels big, it's because we're small. If we're small, there is not enough of us energetically in order to receive. So the next practice that I would offer you is expanding your light bodies. So you would focus on your etheric body, which is the second one over after your physical. You would imagine it as a sphere of light or an egg shape. And you can imagine it as gold, you can imagine it as white, you can imagine it as a combination of the 2 colors. It matters not really for what we're about to do. What you need to do next is increase the size of your egg shape, of the egg shape of your etheric body by 10 times, then by 100 times, then by 1,000 times. And usually if you just increase something in size, it shrinks back unless you fill it up with energy. And so in this particular case, you would want to fill it up with energy. And the way that you do that is you can use the solar codes, for instance, or the solar energy. And so you would imagine that the sun is above you and all of these codes are streaming down and they're filling in your newly expanded energy body. So that is the second. The third one is what I would call the technique of passing through the threshold. Usually when the goal is bigger than you are, it is, again, not on the timeline that you are. That's why it feels unattainable, unachievable, unapproachable. It just feels intimidating. It just feels like, oh my God, how could I possibly ever? And then that's where your logical mind doesn't know how. Like your logical mind would not even have a plan of how you could possibly achieve that thing. Here's what you would imagine. You would imagine yourself standing on the timeline that you are. And then you would imagine a little golden or white portal in front of you, and it looks like an archway. And through the portal, you see a whole other timeline with that 5-bedroom house, or whatever is your version of the 5-bedroom house, right there. And so at first you just observe. You observe and you feel the frequency through the portal of like, what does that object vibrate at? And at first you just need to get comfort at vibrating on the same level. Because there's something about that vibration of the house that's going to feel foreign to you. Your body may want to repel it. Your body may feel uncomfortable. Your body may want to shrink away from it or just draw away from it. It's not going to necessarily be all that comfortable, because if it were, you would have already been aligned with a 5-bedroom house. So it's supposed to feel uncomfortable. And then, essentially, you need to work with yourself to allow yourself to have that which you're seeing in front of you, right? And part of it is, it could be a game of repetition. I allow myself to have this. I allow myself to receive it. And essentially what you're seeking to do is remove resistance towards having that. However, this is not yet the trick. The trick is to step through the portal and over the threshold that separates the two realities, the reality where you are right now and the reality where you have what you want. Once you step into that new timeline where you have allowed yourself, so the entire process of allowing lets you cross that threshold. In other words, if you're cheating and you haven't truly allowed yourself to have the 5-bedroom house, there's no way you would be able to step through the portal. You would feel like some force is sucking you back, it's bringing you back. So you're going to have to relax into it, is a bottom line. And again, expand your consciousness and specifically remove any of the mental blocks that don't allow you to receive that which you have. And your brain would usually give you 20 reasons why you cannot have that. And the answer is, thank you, I am a creator being, and therefore I decide. And then you step through. And once you step through into that other timeline where you have what you want, or rather, where you're starting to vibrate at the frequency of that 5-bedroom house. Feel how your energy has shifted, because every time you step into a new timeline, you're going to get physical sensations in your body that something feels different. The energy around you may feel different, so pay attention to the sensations. Now, this practice of stepping through the threshold, and this practice of allowing, you're going to need to do as many times as it takes for you to believe in your heart of hearts that you have what it takes and truly you are worthy and you are deserving of that one thing which you desire. And therefore, next time you step through the threshold, you're going to be allowed to stay in that reality. So in other words, usually what happens with a quantum leap that is not organic and natural, but something that is induced, right? So when you're trying to induce a quantum leap, the first thing that tends to happen is you try that new reality for a size. Almost like you're trying on a new garment, a new piece of clothing in a store. And the way that you do that is by allowing yourself to have that which you want, and then stepping through the threshold, stepping into the portal, stepping under the archway, and then realizing that on the other side, actually, it's not so far-fetched that you have the 5-bedroom house. It actually is like, duh, of course I have the 5-bedroom house. It's so much natural. Like, it's just so natural. It makes so much sense that you would. Right? Because you're on a timeline where that is not just possible, but probable and a very, very likely outcome, is not, if not the most common outcome. And you would notice that the more times you step through the threshold, the easier it is for you to believe that yes, indeed, you are deserving. Now, you're not going to be able to stay in that timeline until you are convinced, until you have 100% conviction that yes, you intend to have the 5-bedroom house. And that's the difference in frequency. Wishing, dreaming, hoping, praying, even manifesting is not yet an intention to have something. An intention is it's like when you're dead set on something. An intention is like, come rain or shine, I'm going to get it because I said so. Right? The wishes, the dreams, the aspirations, they don't have quite the same amount of charge because they don't have the same amount of belief, or rather, hopes, dreams, and aspirations, they're not yet a knowing that you're going to have something. And what we're looking for is a knowing. So what you cultivate through these practices that I told you about is a knowing that which you want is going to be yours. No questions asked. It doesn't mean that it's going to be yours right next second, but consider it yours. That is the right vibration that will allow you to not just jump the timeline, but to stay there, right? Because the moment you forget what you want, if the conviction is not there, if the knowing is not there, you're going to be thrown back to the sector of reality where you came from. That is the challenges of quantum leaps, and that's why most of them don't work. And the last thing that I will tell you is, all of these practices are great, but you need energy in order to perform any of that. How do you accumulate energy? I could probably make an entire video around how you can accumulate energy that is 6 hours long, and that is not even going to be enough. I will tell you some of the ways that drain you from your energy. And if those things are present, it's going to be very hard for you to accumulate enough energy for the quantum leap. One is if you're not on your path in life. If you are, doing something for work that you dread, if you hate your job, or you hate the primary relationship that you're in, if you hate, if you're not, if you don't have a good relationship with your partner, if you're deeply, deeply dissatisfied with your life, you're not on your path. When you're not on your path, you're losing energy instead of accumulating energy. So if you're with the wrong person, at the wrong job, doing the wrong thing with your life, if you missed out on every single calling from spirit that you've ever gotten, or your soul, it's going to be very hard for you to accumulate energy because you're leaking energy. You're draining away life force. You're most likely already are low energy. So do pay attention to that, right? So always make sure that you are on the path. 2, if on your path, you have to watch what emotions are dominant in you. And you may even do like a little journal of emotions, like write down all of the emotions that you feel on a daily basis. Like your most come on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. What are the emotions that are most characteristic of you? And then divide them into 3 categories: neutral, positive, and negative. If you have very little positive, and essentially if you are net positive, then you're accumulating energy. If your emotions are net negative, meaning you have a lot in the neutral zone and you have a lot more in the negative than in the positive, then you're going to be net negative. What I mean by that, like, let me just explain the math real quick. All of your neutral emotions are like 0. Every single positive emotion is +1. Every single negative emotion is -1. So if you roughly try to sum all of your emotions up, are you going to get a negative number? Are you going to get a 0? Are you going to get a positive? Most of you are not going to get a 0. Duh. So most of you are going to get either a positive number or a negative number. If you're getting a positive number, that means you're accumulating energy. If you're getting the negative number, that means you're losing energy. You're being drained. What happens if you're losing energy? There's no amount of manifestation you can do from a place of minus. So get yourself to a positive state as much as possible. So start shifting your emotions. The way to shift your emotions is not by positive thinking. It's by going in the direction of your negative emotions and understanding the different parts that are causing you to feel those emotions. And then doing parts work and shadow work to integrate those parts of you so that you can come into more light, more fullness, more joy, and more of the positive state. If you need me to do a video on shadow work and parts work, do let me know in the comments. Although there is a technique that I have already shared on my YouTube channel. We're going to try to link it down below. What else drains your energy outside of not being on your path and always running negative emotions? Negative thought patterns. Now, negative thought patterns are very correlated with negative emotions. But even if you do parts work, that's the tricky part about parts work. Sometimes what does not get erased are the thoughts and belief systems, because the mental is your last body. It's kind of like the outmost layer of the core bodies, outside of the spiritual body, of course. And so it's kind of a little bit on the outskirts of a lot of healing. A lot of healing that you do would happen at the energy level and at the level of emotion. And of course, at the level of the physical body. Mental body doesn't always get touched. That's not true for every single healing. But very often the mental body is this, is this last one in to get healed. And so you may still be running this negative thought patterns in the background that may be holding you back. So working on reformulating your belief systems is actually a really, really, really healthy practice. Now, the good news with belief systems is persistence beats resistance here. So mantras do actually work. Affirmations do actually work for that particular layer. Choosing to actively substitute one of your thought patterns for another thought pattern is going to work. Repetition is really, really important here. So if you have a core belief that you would like to have for yourself, you can record that as a voice memo and just listen to it on repeat. Or same thing goes, like you can just pick a sentence that is the new thought, form your belief that you would like to drop into your subconscious, and then writing it down 100 times could also help. So it's just through repetition is how you is one of the ways that you can fix and heal the mental body. There are other things that drain your energy. Of course, from the physical level, it's things like alcohol that drains your energy, things like consuming red meat, or any kind of meat, frankly, or living organisms, right? Like fishes, seafood, all of that. It would drain your energy. And then I think from there, it starts getting into the minor leagues a little bit. And we're probably not going to get into that, but make sure you don't have big energy leaks. Other things that could be potentially problematic as far as energy leaks are promises and vows that you have given yourself and others, and commitments that take your energy away from you. And it's almost like usually it does not even belong to you when your energy doesn't belong to you, but it belongs to an egregore, for instance. And it may or may not serve you. So every big organization that you're a part of is entitled to your energy. Your job is entitled to your energy. They pay you a salary for it. But, if you're a part of any group, a sports group, a religious group, all of those things are going to be taking away your energy. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It just is, right? So if you're a part of a lot of groups and if you're very active, let's call it in the political scene, you're giving a lot of your energies to this egregores. If you're watching a lot of sports, you're giving a lot of your energy to the entertainment, especially if, you get personally worked up about like your favorite teams, etc., etc. All of these things take away your energy. Now, there's no good or bad. Like there is the reason human beings have energy is to give it away. I'm just saying that if you choose to give your energy away and squander it around to all of these like many things, what may be hard for you is to manifest via the quantum leap technique. So claim your energy, go back to the state of plus, right, to the positive state, rewrite your negative thinking and negative beliefs. And then from there, you can also accumulate energy through energy donors. Energy donors are large, usually celestial bodies that you connect to and you get into alignment with, and then they start feeding you with their energy. The two that I would recommend in this particular case are Mother Gaia, planet Earth, or our local sun. Those would be probably your two best bets for energy donors if you're low energy. One, of course, is the downward stream from the sun, the cosmic energy is going down. And the second one is the upward stream from Gaia. If you can have both of them, even better. So if you want to be nurtured by energy from these two celestial bodies, planet Earth and sun, you need a habit of getting into a ritual of reconnecting with the two. The way you connect through Mother Gaia, or to Mother Gaia, is through being in nature, ideally barefoot, and connecting to the energies of the earth, and very much intentionally tapping into the many kingdoms of Gaia, specifically heart-to-heart connection really works. And then asking Gaia for assistance in your quantum leap, and asking Gaia to send you energy for that. And so you can start accumulating and storing that energy. So that's one. And the second one is the sun, through sun gazing, through sun bath, just like really being in the sun, 10 to 15 minutes a day, really being in the sun 10 to 15 minutes a day, and intentionally, again, asking the sun to donate that energy over to you so you can make the quantum leap. How do you actually take the quantum leap? Really, it's that same technique that I told you about, which is, let's just say it's the end game of the technique of crossing the threshold. So in layman terms, in order to do the quantum leap, you would imagine the object of your desire, of what it is, like the outcome, right? And you get really centered and really clear on that with as much clarity as you possibly can. And then you would imagine there's a portal that is created between where you are right now and that lifetime. And then you would pass through the portal. But of course, the one way for you to pass through the portal, the only way, would be to have conviction, faith, and a knowing that the object of your desire is a possibility for you. And the only reason why is because you have allowed yourself, you've given yourself permission. You have given yourself a carte blanche to go after it, and you are convinced that you are the person to get it. You have what it takes to get it. And from there, you've already switched the timelines. And you know how you also know that you switched the timelines? If out of where you start getting confirmations that, and it's very subtle confirmations that you're on the path. I'll give you an example. In our example with a 5-bedroom house, so you do the whole switching of the timelines exercise. All of a sudden, and usually it's so quick, the reality reacts very, very quickly. Within 3 days, you should get a confirmation. And it could come in a form of somebody all of a sudden, like a friend, starts talking to you about the 5-bedroom house. Or you're browsing through ads and all of a sudden you see an ad for a perfect house. Or you're watching TV and you're like, wow, 5-bedroom house, exactly like the one that I wanted. So in other words, if you're starting to align with a desire, on this particular timeline that you find yourself at once you've made the quantum leap, you're going to start noticing the whiffs, the imprints of that object that you want. I will tell you this though. In order to get something that you've never had, you're going to have to do things that you've never done. When you're quantum leaping, the number one precursor to quantum leaping is being okay to leave your old reality behind. And that is when most people are going to fail, because people are way attached to their current way of living. And very much knowingly so, nobody really wants to jump into the unknown. And a quantum leap is always that. You're going into the unknown. You're essentially opening yourself up to surprises and all kinds of challenges. Now, it doesn't mean that achieving your thing in the other reality is going to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. But it is the unknown. And so people just really dislike the unknown. So a part of the quantum leap is being okay with letting go of the old reality, being okay with letting go of the old you. So in some words, or in some ways, it's a mini death experience. And in that mini death, you're doing almost like the shedding exercise. Like some of your old habits are going to have to go. Some of your old thinking patterns are going to have to go. Some of the old energies would need to be excavated out of your body. Some of your feelings can no longer make the cut. Some of your actions and habits can no longer make the cut. When you're jumping sectors like that, or like when you're jumping into a faraway sector, the version of you that's in that sector is not the version of you that's in this sector. So also pay attention to what that version of you looks like. You may be compelled to change what you look like. And it may be minor, like I'm not talking plastic surgery, but it may be a drastic haircut. It may be, a drastic shift in the colors that you wear. It may be all of the above. Right? That could be the sign, right? So pay attention to how your preferences have shifted. You may want to, you may feel like a need to adjust your workout routine or to change who you're friends with, et cetera, et cetera. And that is just the blessing and the curse of the quantum jump. There is another thing. Sometimes people are trying to manifest 2 things or 3 things at the same time. That is like advanced manifestation. You just have to be careful because usually, unless you're a very sophisticated practitioner, you're going to align yourself with a timeline where only one of these things is real. And that is usually your biggest desire. So if I want 3 things, and this first thing that I want, it's just like, it's my number one priority and I want it so much, that is what the universe is going to respond to as it starts aligning me to the paths. And therefore, just be careful because your other 2 things may be left out in the gutter. However, it is always easy to first quantum leap so that that first thing that you really want is already dead set in the middle, right in front of you, and then do a secondary one to also incorporate your other wish. Right. But just want to make sure that, it does get complicated with advanced manifestation when you're trying to do 2 things that are not, not necessarily conflicting, but they're not of the same caliber. Like, for instance, if you're like, I'm looking to manifest a 5-bedroom house, but I'm also looking to manifest 100,000 followers on YouTube or whatever. Those are not in the same vicinity. So it's 2 quantum leaps in other ways. In other words, is what you're looking for. All right, my darlings, I wanted to see if the collective has any questions about the quantum leap, anything that was unclear or anything that is going to serve the collective. So the question is, you have mentioned how hard a quantum leap is. Would you even recommend that we do it? Well, you see, I'm a big fan of opening up horizons for people. I actually think that you all should be believers. You should all believe in yourself above all else. And it's beautiful to want to go for big dreams. So yes, I think manifestation is beautiful because it does help awaken the inner creator in all of you. And dreaming big is very, very important. So yes, I would rather you attempted a quantum leap than you didn't. However, make sure that you have ample energy before you do, and make sure you follow the practices. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of energy, and that's not actually going to get you to the end result. And that perhaps is not what I would like to see for you. Is there another question on the quantum leap? The question is, I know I don't have enough energy to quantum leap because I'm not following my joy in life, and I'm stuck in a relationship that is suboptimal and in a job that I don't love. So what do you recommend that I do? Now, I think I may have already answered that, but just so we're clear. By the way, I'm not saying that this is easy, but when you are already aware of the fact that you are with the wrong person on the wrong timeline at the wrong job, and you're already low energy and you have no joy, I would like to hope that you would want to start making changes, irrespective of the quantum leap technique. I would like to believe and hope that this awareness that you have already is a motivation enough for you to softly, gently start shifting your life. When you're shifting your life, obviously you decide, right? You can take it a little bit easier and do one thing at a time. That's probably the advice that I would give you, is don't try to change the job and the husband and, your entire friend circle and lose 50 pounds and, go vegan all at the same time. Not a good idea. Sometimes, there is such a thing as too much change, and not everybody can handle it very, very well. So take it one step at a time, but commit to taking action, right? Commit to taking action. And you see, sometimes manifestation is a long-term game. It's a long-term plan. Ideally, you manifest from the first day you're born until the last breath. And so think of this process of getting yourself to the right happy place as a part of your manifestation journey. Don't think of it as prep work for manifesting. No, by actively changing your relationship, by actively leaving the job that you don't already want, you are manifesting, you are shifting, you are moving, in the right direction towards your big goals and dreams and whatever those may be. All right, my darlings, I hope this was helpful for those of you that are looking to quantum leap. It has become such a pop topic, such a trending topic. And I find it is often extremely oversimplified. And, it's so much so that I find it laughable. And it's just like overused, and it's used to anything and everything. Like it's used in all of these contexts where it makes no sense to use that as a term. So hopefully today you have gotten an overview of what it actually truly means and what it entails. I hope, that all serves you in what you're trying to achieve in your lifetimes, and sending you a big virtual hug. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.